It's been another hot one in the UK. We had a couple of days of changeable weather over here. It suddenly rained again. It was not great at all. And now we're back to mid to high 20 degrees and bags of sunshine. And I hope everyone is doing okay. I'm a little bit later coming out today. I had to go and get some shut eye. It's been a bit of a long night, and I've got another long day tomorrow. It's one of those weeks, actually, where lots of stuff's going on. Hello, Blood Nose. Good to see you. Hope you're doing all right, and always great to see your name pop up in the chat. One of the reasons that I'm a little bit late as well is I saw a podcast last night to do with the shooting of all the school children in the Uvalde school in Texas, and something caught my eye last night. It was a podcast from my friends over at Police Off the Cuff, where they were talking about what could have been done to prevent this, hardening the target, and giving a critique of the actions of the law enforcement personnel, and rather the chief of the police department of the school over there. And I thought it was a very interesting podcast and very revealing, particularly from a law enforcement point of view. It's always good to listen to that shared wealth of experience. I mean, Bill Cannon and Phil Grimaldi must have close to 50 years of experience between them, perhaps. And it's good to hear from their point of view a bit of plain common sense. Let's have a look in the chat and see who we've got already. Seeing a few familiar names, even a couple of newbies. Brendan Barron, hello, nice to see you. Mad Spaniel, good to see you as well. Make sure you hit the like button, everybody that's just come into the chat. Jane Griffiths made it to the live, good to see you. Hello, Mike Alligators, good to see you as well. Long time no see. Matt Wooten as well. From a law enforcement point of view, how can anyone trust the police with children now? Blood Nose says. Mike Alligators, loss of your mate. Yeah, the funeral's on Monday, Mike Alligators, and I've been asked to do a reading at the church. I've never done something like that before. As you know, I have no trouble talking whatsoever, so that could be an interesting one, but I'm expecting that to be sent over to me. And that'll be good to do that. It's been a shit couple of days, really, to do with that though. Really, to be honest with you. Who else have we got? That's Brendan, said hello to you. Julie Baldwin, hello to you. I've seen a couple of your messages you've left me today, but I've not had a chance to really catch up or reply to anything. And I've had my mate Rafi message me, who we spoke about yesterday as well. Yes, Tracy Regan, hello to you. Tanner family memories as well. Good to see you all. Yeah, the Uvalde, well, I suppose you could call it a massacre, a disaster, where a young, what was he, 18, 19-year-old kid walked in there with a high-powered assault rifle and killed all those children and 2 teachers. Very, very awful situation. Horrible day. And there's lots of information now coming out about who did what, who said what should have happened here, what should have happened there, and more importantly, could it have been stopped? And I watched a critique last night from Police Off the Cuff, and I also know my other friend Duty Ron covered this as well. Now, whenever I see stuff going on over there, from their perspective, and they give it from the American perspective, sometimes that story comes up in our press as well, and I always like to kind of cover it from our perspective as well, and let you know what they're saying over here. And here you go. Obviously, just to reiterate the story, it was Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. And loads and loads of kids were murdered, and a couple of teachers as well. I think it was something like 19 kids and 2 teachers. Absolutely awful, all gunned down by a young 18, 19-year-old kid who was eventually gunned down by law enforcement at the time. Awful. Hello, Anna Perkins. Good to see you, and Cosmic War Toad as well. Michael May too. Yes, we're getting reports out that, they're trying to say, could this have been stopped? Could this have been stopped before it began? Because could it have been stopped a long time before it actually was? Now, there was an interesting statistic I heard. There's a disparity between how long what they term an active shooter carries on for and how long law enforcement takes to respond to an active shooter. And the whole discussion is trying to slow that active shooter down in order to give law enforcement more time to respond. And I think it was something like 19 minutes this whole thing went on for before, he was eventually taken out. I mean, what we've got in our press, we've got first photo inside Uvalde shooting revealed as police chief admits gunman could have been stopped in 3 minutes. Now, that's a hell of a thing to come out with, considering all the death and destruction. I'll show you this picture of it comes out. This apparently was taken from inside the hallway. Now, there's a cop there with what looks like quite a high-powered rifle, and another one just off picture as well, with what looks like a shield. Now, they're calling it a ballistic shield in the press, but it looks like some kind of riot shield. And one of the arguments is should they have waited, or should they have just gone straight in there? Lots of the police officers are saying that have analysed this. They broke the basic tenet of active shooting: straight in there, straight to the gunfire, take it out, save life. That seems to be what the general consensus is. And there's the situation with the door as well, which they were waiting for the keys for. And there's now a rumour going around that the damn door wasn't locked in the first place. So didn't somebody think to try it? Here we go. Let's get this clear. I'm not critiquing in any way. I'm just, saying out loud. I'm not law enforcement. I'm a cab driver, for Christ's sake. But I want to feel the need to say something from the British point of view, according to what's being reported. Enough armed police officers to stop the shooting at Robb Elementary School arrived within 3 minutes of when the gunman began firing, a top law enforcement official in Texas said on Tuesday. Think about that. Enough law enforcement officials were there. Police officers in Uvalde, Texas, stood in a hallway of the school holding rifles for 77 minutes, waiting for additional manpower and other tactical gear before they finally stormed the classroom and killed the gunman who had already killed 19 students and 2 teachers. Now, it's my understanding there was a lot of 911 calls from the kids in the classroom when some officers, including apparently the chief of the police of the school police department, tried to approach the door. They were fired upon and a couple grazed. And there are various, accounts of this coming out. None of the police officers tried to enter the 2 classrooms in which the gunman killed 21 people, despite earlier claims they had to wait so long to enter because the doors were locked and they were waiting on keys. Now, I remember a critique of this from a tactical point of view, looking at all the windows and things from outside. If the door was there, why didn't they go through the windows? I'm not saying spray bullets all over the place. There was kids in there, for Christ's sake. But a door, there's just so much misinformation coming out of here. I don't care if you have on flip-flops and Bermuda shorts, you go in. Director of Texas Department of Public Safety, Steve McGraw, said Tuesday during a Senate committee hearing. This is what I read and what I heard last night. When there's an active shooter incident, particularly if there's children involved, as there was in this case, you don't fuck around. You go in, and you do necessary. I mean, apparently there was parents trying to get in the place as well. If I'd want to go through the damn window if that was my son in there, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents that feel the same. The newly released surveillance footage was obtained by the Austin American-Statesman and KVUE-TV and shared before the hearing. So there was surveillance. There was videos in there. The officers had weapons. The children had none. The officers had body armor. The children had none. The officers had training. The subject had none, McCraw said. So there's strong implication there is, why didn't they go in? What was stopping them? McGraw called the police response to the shooting one of the deadliest in recent US history, an abject failure, and said it was antithetical to the lessons learned since Columbine High School in 1999. Now, there's a lot of muckraking going on, saying the police are cowards, the police didn't go in, the police should have gone in. But there's a very big aspect to this, which is a basic failure of command. They should have gone in. Not only was the door to enter the classroom unlocked, but the lock was broken, McGraw said, noting that the teacher had requested the door to be fixed before the shooting. Now, if they were waiting for keys and the door was unlocked, that implies to me that nobody thought to check the lock on the door to see if it was open. I can't quite get my head around that. I have great reasons to believe it was never secured, McCraw said of the door. How about trying the door and seeing if it's locked? The delayed response by law enforcement officials had been the subject of both state and federal investigations, and the newly released information seems to indicate that officers could have taken down the gunman sooner than they did. Now, I don't know whether this information is accurate anymore, but I read somewhere that they were told to hold. John Harris, they have breaching shotguns, don't they, particularly for going through doors and going through door locks to get at people very quickly. I mean, you have the added thing that the kids were there, but you know, even me as a layman, I sit here and think, what the fuck went wrong? Because something certainly did. The gunman, Salvador Ramos, entered the school at 11:33 a.m. local time. Within 3 minutes, 11 police officers had arrived at the school. An officer with a ballistic shield was at the school by 11:52. They say about the ballistic shield that there is talk, or I've seen notes that a shield of that kind wouldn't have stopped around from a high-powered assault rifle. That's here and all there, really. You go in even if you're wearing shorts to save life, to save young life. Police finally entered the classroom at 12:50 and took down the gunman. McGraw specifically criticised the on-scene commander for ordering officers to wait to confront a shooter rather than storming the classroom immediately. Now, he had his reasons apparently for saying wait. There are reasons that have been changing from what I've been reading and what I'm led to understand as time goes by. I'm not going to get too far into that. Again, I'm only reporting on what I can see in front of me. I think one of the reasons was he believed it went from an active shooter incident to a one involving hostages. I'm not sure, how he came to that conclusion. But one thing that did come out, a policeman or police officer has to obey a lawful order, as in, one they believe makes sense. Now, if you're standing there and hearing gunfire go off and, young children suffering, do you stand there and wait? What else went on that we don't know about, I wonder? The commander, the school district's police chief, Peter Arredondo, had also initially thought the situation had changed to a barricaded subject rather than active shooter, as we just said. He wrongly believed the situation was not an active threat anymore. you got a person in a classroom with kids and he's got a gun. I'd call that an active threat. And again, I'm just a layman. Uh, Arredondo has also repeatedly said he didn't consider himself the person in charge and assumed someone else had taken control of the police response. Not only did he have the wrong information, but he didn't have a radio with him either. He decided apparently to take that off before he went in for reasons unknown, thereby cutting off his means of communication with the outside world. Parents of the shooting victims and members of the Uvalde community have also been criticising Arredondo's leadership, many calling him incompetent. At a school board meeting Monday, many community members called for his resignation. Apparently he's a city council member as well. Having Pete still employed, knowing he is incapable of decision-making that saves lives is terrifying, said Brett Cross, the uncle of one of the students who died. Innocence doesn't hide, innocence doesn't change its story, but innocence did die on May 24. A number of attendees at Monday's meeting even held signs reading "Fire Pete Arredondo" outside the school's auditorium. Arredondo publicly defended the police response to the shooting earlier this month, saying not a single responding officer ever hesitated even for a moment to put themselves at risk to save the children. I remember that coming out. More details of the 24th of May shooting are expected to be discussed in the Texas Senate on Tuesday. So that's the latest from the UK perspective, I suppose. And we can see what's going on over there now. It's very difficult to get my head around this because there's the whole Second Amendment thing, the right to bear arms as is enshrined in the American Constitution. And of course, if somebody is going to attack you with a firearm under that Constitution, you have a right to defend yourself. It's as simple as that. You have a right to possess a firearm, and you have a right to use it in the defense of your life, your family's life, your property. I have no problem with that. That's part of the American way of life, I suppose. And, I could go to a school in the UK and, take my son's school, for example. Julie Keys, it is shocking. It keeps happening. I've read quite a large handful of similar stories from over there since this has happened, and we're barely 4 weeks on, and it keeps happening. I could walk into a school in this country, take my son's school for example. I could walk through the front gate. I could walk into the reception area. We went to his sports day today and watched him running around with his friends and having races and that, and it's all it's not locked up or locked down in that nature. There's no secure entry systems. It doesn't need to be, because we simply, we haven't done in a great number of years, had an issue of this nature to make it so. So what do? You have to accept the fact that I suppose this is going to happen over there. It's an undeniable fact that it is, because the politicians and the government types don't seem to want to make any meaningful change to make this stop. You can't alter the Second Amendment. You wouldn't want to alter the Second Amendment. It's a basic tenet of the American Constitution. And I think if you told Americans that they're going to have the guns taken off of them, I wouldn't want to be you when you said that, to be quite honest. So you have to work. You have to work with the system. They have the right to defend themselves. If I moved to America tomorrow, I'd want to buy a firearm. I'd want to defend myself. It's that simple. That simple. So what do? They're talking about hardening targets, as in making these facilities, these school facilities, and I suppose others, more secure as a result. Secure entries, double doors, locked. Controlled access, fences, taking away the ability for them to ram anything. slowing their access to corridors and internal doorways and everything down. There's various things they are talking about, and the whole idea is you have to slow that active shooter down to give law enforcement time to respond, to give law enforcement time to take them out of the picture before anybody is harmed or the number is harmed that we see in this case, or Columbine, or all the years before. They're talking about police, their response to, they're talking about you know, the situation with the schools, with their security. I mean, I'm seeing people in the chat at the moment wondering whether this was a false flag operation designed to introduce rules to strip people's rights away from them. This is also a distinct possibility. I grant you, but there's one thing that I keep going through my mind. Right, and hear me out on this. If I'm in America and I have a license to do so, a lot of states now have open or closed carry licenses. You can quite happily walk down the street packing a firearm. Okay, fine. So what is the process involved in getting that firearm? Is there any Americans in the chat that can just tell me what do you have to do to get a firearm in America? Now, where I'm going with this is, how could a young kid, I mean, what was he, 18, 19 years old, get his hands on a powerful assault rifle, let alone, I think the figure I saw was literally thousands of dollars worth of ammunition, and then go and do this? Where is the system that allowed this young person to go and buy that firearm and perpetuate this tragedy? You know, he went and slaughtered all these kids. How did he get his hands on that firearm? How was he checked? Was he checked? Or was it, oh yeah, you can pick these. You know, look at the shelf behind me. You can have 2,000 rounds of ammunition besides, and you can go and shoot up who the hell you like. Was it like that? Or was there any proper checks? Does there need to be proper checks? I'm not saying stop people buying a gun. No, of course I'm not. But I do wonder how he got his hands on it in the first place. You tell me, what is the process? This is the Daily Chat with Andy the Gabby Cabby, everybody. I know we're talking American news right now, but this did catch my eye before I came out, and I just wanted to deliver a little piece on it, although I've spent most of the stream so far talking about it, just from the British perspective, what we're reporting on. And, you know, particularly our American friends in the chat, you can hear what's being said over here and what I think of it. If you haven't done so already in the chat, can you please hit the like button, give it the thumbs up, and that will help the algorithm. That's wonderful. And also, if you're new to Andy the Gabby Cabby, please consider subscribing as well. That will really help us too. Now, I'm not a cop. I'm a taxi driver. There is a law enforcement background in my family going back a couple of generations. Unfortunately, I broke the mold, but I always take a very big interest, and there is you know, other podcasters out there with more accurate information than me, Police Off the Cuff being one. I literally just report on what's printed and let you make your own minds up. That's all. And it's good to hear it from across the other side of the pond. Now let's have a quick look in the chat, because I see a couple of people saying stuff, and then we'll move on. Robert McNair, the UK government have already run a gun amnesty a few weeks ago. Give them nothing. They do that with knives as well. You know, give us your knife and we won't come after you, but they'll do that and go and buy another one. If they remove guns from US citizens, Andy, there will be a domino effect. I think there'd be more than that, Robert. I think there'd be a civil war. They just wouldn't have it at all. And I can't say I blame them. I mean, the environment is, people are going to have guns. It's a fact. It's a way of life, and people have the right to defend themselves. in a similar ilk. But then those guns have to be used responsibly, don't they? And how did this kid or people like him get hold of the damn things? And where's the deterrent to stop them thinking about this in the first place? That's something else. Uh, Gary Thornbury, it's good to hear your perspective. Yeah, Gary's always good because he lives in Texas, I'm led to believe, and we can hear what's going on. 2 high-end rifles, Andy. Yes, that was the number, wasn't it? Evening, Andy, and everyone in the chat. Sorry, but I've just got home from work. That's all right, M. Perry, you're here. That's the main thing. Robert McNair, the lad in Buffalo, took out 10 people, mostly with headshots. Yeah, there's another one right there. John Harris, they should give the teachers firearms. You don't get mass shootings at police stations. John Harris, that was, I think that was intimated or muted out a little while ago, wasn't it, really? But I don't think the teachers want the firearms, do they? At least somebody in the teachers' union said so. Hello, Trevor. Good to see you. Robert McNair, John, false flag. Look at the equipment the shooter in Uvalde had. $75,000 truck, 2 high-end rifles, armor, and $1,500 of ammo. He was an unemployed young kid, wasn't he, Robert? I mean, you make a valid point there. I mean, what have we got? 75, 80. You might as well call it $100,000 a kit, I suppose. Where did it all come from? You telling me he stole it? Don't make sense, does it? And he's obviously not around to tell us. Pip and Neil, if I lived in America, I'd definitely want to own a gun. You know, I've fired guns in the past, and I'm sure many of you in the chat have. And you know, guns can be fun if used correctly. They're interesting to me, but they're at the end of the day, they're also lethal weapons and can be used accordingly. Instances of school shootings in US rundown city areas are practically non-existent. Some of the parents were armed and not allowed to save the kids. Well, there's that thing I mentioned earlier, Gary, concealed or open carry. A lot of people are packing these days, aren't they? Perhaps they could have done something. I think the parents of the kids will take care of the police, and Chief of Police Gary Thornbury says, I heard he's been receiving death threats. That's one thing I heard earlier today. Classic Stalin tactics, restrict movement and bring in IDs. There's this very big narrative here that perhaps this was all orchestrated. Something is very wrong and very dark in America. Robert McNair, increasing military aircraft. There's so much going on, isn't there? Really so much going on. Klaus Schwab wants everyone disarmed to take over the US. 40% increase in dying. Yeah, it's that's a name that keeps coming up again and again and again. Nothing went wrong. It happened as planned. I'm glad I don't have kids in primary school anymore. God knows what they're being taught and told. I just have a feeling it's not good. Yeah, I heard today that somebody is confused about the way they are, the way they think they are. That's what I can say on that. To buy a gun, you have to pass a background check, Gary Thornbury says. So when you say background check, is it a criminal record check? And if so, is that at the state level? Is that at the federal level? Do they go into your what's going on up here? How in depth is that actual check, and how far back does it go? I just can't understand how. And again, it's my British naivety kicking in. I know it is, but I just can't understand why that was allowed to have happened. He may have bought the arms from the cartels. Yeah, the old what do they call it? I can't remember what they call it, but there's a name for it. The underground movement of weaponry. Man refused to give blood because he wouldn't answer the question if he was pregnant. I remember that the other day, Tony. I remember that, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. The fact somebody could have had their life saved over lefty bureaucratic bullshit is absolutely crazy to me. Yes, it's mad. Well, moving over to UK news now. I heard and I saw a lot of signs on the roads over the last few days about incoming rail strikes, which have obviously gone ahead. Today, apparently, there was last-ditch attempts to try and save the situation and stop the strikes from happening. And they've gone ahead anyway. And I wonder, has anyone in the UK actually been affected by the strikes? Give me a 1 in the chat if the rail strikes have caused you a problem today, or a 2 if they haven't. That'll be interesting. We've got 70 people in the chat and 70 likes. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, everybody. That's a good job. So a 1 in the chat if you've been affected by the strikes, and a 2 in the chat if you haven't. Robert Manair has. Trevor, Mad Spaniel, haven't. Not in England, Blood knows. Julie, no. Kim Allison, no. Tyrone has. Diddy and Ringo, no. So a few of you haven't really been bothered. I mean, I've been worried about traffic all day going around. You know, an increase of traffic on the roads, but I was out at Gatwick early this morning, and I didn't really hear anything at all, really. There was a mix of sympathy and scorn among travellers as central London's busiest train station this morning, the UK's biggest rail strike in a generation, got underway. I mean, this is the fucking media again. I mean, look at this picture here. Look at all these sad faces getting on a London bus. I mean, that could have been anywhere, any time of day in London. That could have been taken 3 weeks ago, for all we know. But they're trying to, you know, stir it up again, I suppose. There was a mix of sympathy and scorn. Early in the day, at first, it almost seemed like a new lockdown had suddenly been introduced. Oh, joy, oh, rapture. The usual bustling concourse, lively bus stops and crammed pavements were instead eerily quiet, except for a handful of tabard-wearing station staff eagerly approaching anyone who would listen to offer them travel advice. But as the sun sleepily rose and peaked above the imposing architecture of Victoria Station in London, commuters, confused tourists, and a few weary early riser travellers started to slowly appear. Today's strike is expected to be the most disruptive of the lot this week. Not only are most railway services affected, but a separate tube strike is also taking place for a further 24 hours. While the gates to the underground were firmly locked, the concourse and its mix of croissant and coffee outlets were open as usual, so you could sit there, wait for a train that would never arrive, and have a cup of coffee. And there was a small number coming in and out. There were a handful of people still milling about, and almost all copies of Metro in the station's bins had already been snapped up by 8 a.m. You've got to be quick, even when there is a strike. But it was the buses outside that came to the rescue for most travellers, with long queues soon forming at the stops by the station's main entrance, as people desperately tried to cram on and get to work. Commuters were full of praise for the steady stream of bus drivers pulling up and ushering everyone aboard with minimal fuss, with most people managing to get on board despite the heavy lines. Among them was secondary school worker Andrea Morales, who was attempting the journey from her home near Pimlico to St John's Wood. Usually I get the tube, takes about 15 minutes, but today I'm catching a bus, and I'll probably be an hour or so to get into work. I'm grateful for the buses. Me, I'd have chucked a sticky personally, and I'm wondering how many else would have done. 15 minutes on the tube, or yes, I don't think I'd want to sit on the bus for an hour in this heat. After the last strike, I'm starting to get used to it now. It does have an impact, but I do have some sympathy with the rail staff. I understand why they are doing this. Do you indeed? This week sees many pupils at secondary schools take their exams. I asked her if she was worried the strike would have an impact on them. She said the strike is causing disruption not only to members of staff at my school, but the pupils as well. As some of them live outside the borough, but we are making arrangements to cope with it. Also waiting for a bus was hotel front of house staffer Amir Eknali, if I said that correctly, who was in a less magnanimous mood. He told me he had struggled in from his home in Wembley, northwest London, and was still trying to get to his workplace nearby St James's Park. I don't support the strikers at all. It's been happening for many years and the government does nothing. Probably suits them, all the division, I suppose. Something should be done to stop it. The government should not allow these people to strike. There are plenty of other people who would work in their place. I'm very frustrated. Normally it takes about 30 minutes maximum to get to work. Today it's nearly 3 hours and I've had to get 3 buses. Hell of a time. But it wasn't just commuters, travellers and a clutch of journalists milling about. Sure enough, before long, a group of striking RMT workers showed up, clutching banners and signs. Oh, look, and they were accompanied by a few Labour MPs. Who knew that they would turn up? Yeah, they positioned themselves a little way back from the station on the other side of the road, opposite one of the busiest bus stops away from commuters. However, I didn't hear anyone give them any grief or abuse. And, you know, this goes on. Stockport MP Nevudu Mishra was more than happy to chat, said they were just there supporting the rail workers. Wandering back to the station, there were some young people sitting on a pavement surrounded by bags and rucksacks, look like camping equipment. And there's various other statements here from the effect it's having on people. I mean, what do you think about this strike? You tell me. Should they, strike? Give me a 1 in the chat if you think they should, or a 2 in the chat if you think get the fuck back to work. And let's see what the opinion is. Yeah, Cairns, London. Don't get me started, Tyrone. It's one thing after another, and the place is turning into an utter shithole. I tell you as well, if I get any job requests to London, I think that I don't want to go anymore. It's making it very, very difficult indeed. Set up now, isn't it? It's a neat trick. Remember when computer memory factories burnt down? I remember that as well. Oh no, we'll have to put the price up. Yes, exactly. A couple of people are like, well, get the fuck back to work. What are you playing at? Yes, it's a pretty divisive attitude. I mean, people are talking about prices going up. I mean, you look at the fuel, you may as well call it £2 a litre everywhere now. It's daft. It's very interesting times we live in. Somebody mentioned Russia. Criminal, as long as your first name is yeah. All orchestrated by Davos. I had Uber. Heard Uber have tripled prices in some places. I read that, Anna. I think Uber have a facility on their software. I think they call it surge pricing. I think that's a technical name for it, where there's high demand for their services. They just rip everybody else off, basically, and it goes through the roof. This is the daily chat with Andy the Gabby Cabby, everybody. Welcome. Hope you're doing okay. Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday night. We were slightly later than usual. I just wanted to mug up very quickly on the story I read about Uvalde. If you haven't done so already, please hit the thumbs up on the chat. Let's get the old thumbs up going. We need the algorithm talking about us. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Also, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Andy the Gabby Cabby. Really appreciate that. And that helps the numbers grow as well. Missed half the program. Sorry, busy. You're all right, Bridget. There's always catch up, and you're here regular enough already anyway, so there's no need to apologise. We're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all the usual, so you can catch up with us over there as well. I haven't posted anything for a little while, but we need to get that sorted out, don't we? and get that done as well. We're up to 80 likes now, so I appreciate that. Let's try and get that up to three figures before we go, shall we? 100. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is Russia. We've got that situation over there, and Russia's threatening this, Russia's threatening that, Russia's threatening the other. We've read reports of grain not getting to where it could be, which is going to affect things like bread and all the rest of it. And the latest thing is, I think, Kaliningrad, which is a little pocket of land isolated from mainland Russia, and they rely a lot on imports of various raw materials to keep them going. And where are we? Yeah, I mean, this is another scaremongering bullshittery right here. There you go. There's a nice picture of a big nuclear missile and some important Ruski looking person, and all I will say to you is niet to what you're coming out with. But he says Britain will cease to exist if World War III happens, says Russian general. The UK will physically cease to exist if the latest standoff in Lithuania triggers a nuclear war, a retired general says. I mean, what's happening with Lithuania, who also happens to be part of NATO, you've got a situation where they're turning around. Who's this we've got here? Karen Kinsley, newbie in your chatter, new sub. Welcome, Karen. Good to see you, and thank you for joining the Andy the Gabby Cabby community. We appreciate you and everyone else in the chat, and thank you for listening. Yes, the whole thing at the moment, Lithuania is putting a block on certain imports, to do with Kaliningrad, and Russia's getting the arsehole and says if they're going to do that, we're going to take action. And the basis is Lithuania is part of NATO. So if Russia have a go at Lithuania, are we all in the shit? This is the latest standoff, and it's an inevitability that this was going to come along sooner or later. On Russian TV, Lieutenant General, or Lieutenant General, as we say in this country, Evgeny Brzezinski said the West is playing with fire in blockading the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad in order to prevent sanctioned goods from reaching the territory via NATO state Lithuania. So they are actively stopping these things. The military expert also lashed out at British General Sir Patrick Sanders, who took command of Britain's land forces this week. I remember reading about that, and saying troops should be prepared to fight Russia and defend Europe. He doesn't understand that as a result of the Third World War, Britain will physically cease to exist. That is the ultimate. We do not want that to happen. It's an awful thing to think about. The island will vanish, so I've no idea where he or his descendants will live. In a chest-beating message sent to troops on his fourth day in charge of the armed forces, General Sanders said, "I am the first chief of the General Staff since 1941 to take command of an army in the shadow of a land war in Europe involving a continental power." This is very, very worrying rhetoric and seems to be upping the ante again. And I noticed old Boris was at it the other day as well. It appears to keep our attention away from other matters, doesn't it? Stu Colg, hello to you. M. Perry. Who else have we got here? Mad Spaniel, good to see you. And Stink Pooter. The scale of the enduring threat from Russia shows we've entered a new era of insecurity. It's my singular duty to make our army as lethal and effective as it can be. The time is now, and the opportunity is ours to seize. Well, what about years of defence cuts, General? Which is making our armed forces quite ineffective compared with others in the world. I'm not quite sure where you're going with that, sir, but I'm sure you can fill us in due course. In response, Lieutenant Brzezinski, Lieutenant now, he's added demotion. Lieutenant General Brzezinski claimed alongside the war in Ukraine, the situation in Kaliningrad was very serious and urged President Vladimir Putin to move nuclear weapons to the enclave in order to protect Russian interests. Formerly the Prussian outpost of Königsberg, the city of Kaliningrad is Russia's most westerly territory and it's been a key strategic outpost since the end of the Second World War. It's wedged in between Lithuania and Poland and acts as the headquarters of the Kremlin's Baltic Fleet. So I suppose they want to try and put the squeeze on them. This is a long game to push us out from the Baltic Sea, an attempt to block and cut Kaliningrad off, and finally to take it away from us, he claims. Brzezinski, who served in senior positions in the Russian Defense Ministry, said the West intended to block Kaliningrad economically completely until our people howl from destitution. He added Putin should nullify the Soviet recognition of Lithuania's independence, switch off its energy, and take control of its borders. And then finally, we must take the military measures, he concluded. We've got to do something. We've got to strengthen our presence at the border with Lithuania, as we did in December last year and January this year at the border with Ukraine. Elsewhere in the interview, Brzezinski confirmed Russia was now effectively at war with NATO, adding any attempts to impede on Russian sovereign territory could make the situation in Ukraine look like a joke. Elsewhere this week, Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov warned all trust has now evaporated between the West and Moscow. Well, that's preaching to the choir, mister. I think we know that that's pretty much the way it is. Relations between Russia and the rest will not be back at the previous level because Moscow will never again trust such partners. It will be a lengthy crisis, but we will never trust the West again. Between 2002 and 2009, Brzezinski was head of the International Treaty Directorate and deputy head of the main Directorate for International Military Cooperation at the Russian Ministry of Defense, so quite a high up in the Russian way of things. So to me, it seems like yet another escalation, and I wonder where it goes. But all the while, they're trying to scare us with the threat of World War III, complete annihilation, and also, you know, the rise of the convicts when no one's actually really testing. So how do we know the levels are going up? Very, very interesting time. So I have to ask myself, what the fuck's going on really? It's as simple as that. Let's have a quick look through the chat, see what people are saying, and then we'll look at wrapping up. Andy Simo Simpson, hey up mate from Yorkshire, hello, good to see you, Andy. Brian Smith, Energy 2, fake media, propaganda, censorship, bloody blah. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Hi Magic 21, good to see you. Honesty and Truth, Julie, this chat is amazing, great people, all friendly, best chat on YouTube. We call ourselves Andy's Army. I forget who come up with that phrase, but I love it. Yeah, if you like Andy's Army and all things Andy's Army, give me a like, give me a thumbs up. Let's get that to 3 figures. People's values have changed and strikes are not as well tolerated as people have lost that sense of solidarity with unions. Yes, Stink Pooter, somebody mentioned in the comments section on one of the videos the other day about what's going on with the fuel at the moment. 20 years ago, we didn't tolerate this. We went mad when the prices started going up, but now we seem to be taking it, don't we? Have you noticed how many senior officers are being sent to Ukraine and their demise, and now senior backroom types are being ousted in Russia? Constructive removal. That's a point. Got Lot Road tomorrow, Andy, 44 tonner, all routes. David Crosby, oh, I fancy throwing a Barbie on a shrimp and dress up like a gimp. Love it. Tommy Moore, good to see you with the sunglass emojis. Very warm welcome. I'm on a few channels, but not all are this nice. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. I just want to be welcoming and be me. I'm just a everyday cabbie, just having a chat, basically. We'll all be gibbering like Gibbons after we get the monkey paw. Fucking hell, don't go on about that. When the chief of the school agency stopped coordinating. Yeah, 5 more thumbs up, please, to 100. Well, we need 3 more. So come on, folks. 3 more to get to 100 before we finish. Appreciate that. Anna Perkins should be happy so long as the problematic David Crosby, and he's in the house. It certainly is. And that is 100 likes, everybody. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We try and aim for that every time if we can. Right, folks. I'm going to do one, as they say. I've got some other work to do indoors. And what I'm going to do with this live tonight, yeah, that's true, Blood Nose. Alan Pape is missing in action today. I wonder where he is and if he's okay. He may be working or something. We'll find out. What I'm going to do with this live stream, I'm going to try and split it down into 3 chunks, 3 different stories. So anybody that doesn't, sit here and watch all of this, at least they'll have that in more manageable chunks. So they can read that later. I'll be back tomorrow at some point with another live, of course, with more things to discuss, and anything that comes up in the news, I'll bring that to you as well. I appreciate each and every one of you in the chat, all of your comments, likes, and all of your interactions, as always, are very much appreciated. All of those of you that have hit the like, all the channel members, the subscribers, and everybody that contributes to Andy the Gabby Cabby. Love you all. Thank you very much. And a shout out to everybody. Yeah, that's it. I'll see you tomorrow, folks. And until then, toodaloo.